Welcome to Ear for Fear. This is Donovan, and this is the podcast where we talk about scary movies or movies trying to be scary.
Hey, and I'm Rick, and today Donovan and I are going to be talking about 2019's The Cleansing Hour. Before you and I jump into this, let me, I guess, go over what the plot or synopsis is about. Drew and Max run a webcast that streams live exorcisms that are elaborately staged hoaxes. But they get their comeuppance when the actress for their new episode becomes mysteriously possessed by a real demon that holds the crew hostage. In front of a rapidly growing global audience, the demon subjects Max to a series of violent and humiliating challenges meant to punish him for his online charade. With only the show clock remaining, it's a matter of time before either the truth is revealed or the demon forces them to meet their maker. So, Cleansing Hour, 2019. Neither you or I had seen this.
No.
I think I had recommended it. I think I was just going through, I think I was randomly searching, hey, I don't know, cool horror movies over the last, couple years. And this one popped up, and I'm like, it looked kind of interesting, I'm like, let's give it a shot, I figure, looked kind of cool. I think it's a Shudder exclusive, so they seem to do a lot of these lately. So I guess before we jump into it, spoilers. Just let the
right
audience
off the bat. Yeah. What'd you think of this movie?
Dude, this was tough. It's like I didn't hate this movie. It was weird, man. I was thinking about this. There's some stuff going on in this. It's kind of cool. Like the story itself, I think I like a lot. But as it kind of played out, it was weird, man. It was like some stuff was like some of the effects were cool. Some of the ideas are really cool. And then it just became kind of, I don't know, like hokey for me. I don't know if that's even the right word. I was thinking if I was to rate this, and I rarely do this, but a 1 to 10, this would be a 5 or 5.5 for me. Like I said, story's cool. Some ideas are cool, but then it became very religious, very kind of political. I mean, the undertone here seemed to really point at politicians, religion, right? I mean, towards the end with, I guess, the father being the president of this little kid who's ended up,
that wasn't political in any way in my opinion.
I get the whole of the, I guess I saw it.
I think the interpretation of that scene, and again, we're in spoiler territory, so we're just going to talk about the ending here. But that scene with the kid it's like the devil's plan is to disrupt the entire world, right? So, the president's son was watching. So the powers that be then had the son kill the president, which will then, according to this movie, throw the entire world in disarray.
But do you think though?
I don't think there was any political message there. No, not at all.
Maybe
man.
in the sense of, let's say the writer or the director of this movie, they're saying, hey, maybe. America is kind of out of whack and, honestly, in disarray. And so,
if that was the case, they wouldn't have shown the most boring president alive.
Right. So, yeah.
They would have shown just a caricature of Trump, because this movie was made not too long ago, during the Trump presidency.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, no, dude. In fact, I think that was about as apolitical as you could get.
You think so? Maybe it's just because we're so the election is still fresh, and maybe I wanted to look into something that just wasn't there.
Yeah, for a second there, I thought we were talking about a different movie, because I was like, what are you talking about? No, even because whenever you talk about a religious movie, and I wouldn't call this a religious movie, but it deals with topics of religion. It's kind of hard to not. It's hard to divorce yourself from religion entirely. Whenever I watch The Exorcist or something, and I'm not particularly religious, I'm like, oh yeah, this is like the base like mythos of where this movie is operating from is something that I don't believe in, but that doesn't stop me from sort of enjoying or understanding what's happening. So when it comes to this movie, I was like, okay, there's the religious aspect. They obviously know religion. I'm not even sure what religion they're referencing. You probably know more than me. Is this just like pure Catholicism or
Seemed like it.
Christianity?
Yeah, one of the two, and I'm terrible with religion. So
Okay.
yeah.
Well, like father, like son, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's probably where I get it. But so, I mean, that was like the only hurdle for me. I didn't think there was any sort of political thing going on.
Okay. So maybe I just read into it.
Like to that president point, like it's literally just there, like this is going to disrupt the entire world type of thing, which is what the devil wants, right?
It makes sense.
That's that's how I interpreted that.
Okay. Yeah, I probably just
I think if they were going to do that, they would have shown like politicians like watching the stream, but then like not being possessed by demons. You know what I mean?
Oh,
like
that's
true. As like a cheeky little joke, like, oh yeah, politicians are all evil anyway.
Yeah,
like that would be for me like commentary on like the political system there, right? Or that they just like had so much control, or like maybe there were already demons, you know, in the same way that I forget her name. I'm not gonna remember any names here besides Max, by the way.
So Max is the priest.
Who's the girlfriend?
Lane.
Yeah.
Lane
or Lane?
Lane. Like, stay in your lane.
Yeah. So like Lane, like she was obviously possessed, right?
Mhm.
You know, like you can just like throw in all politicians are like quote unquote possessed, and that's why they're evil, right? So no, like this movie could have done way more with that. And because I didn't like do the obvious things, and these are things I just thought of off the top of my head, I don't think they were trying to make sort of any sort of political or even religious message. I do think that the sort of demonic religious stuff in this movie is literally just there for fun.
Okay. Okay. I mean, I have a tendency sometimes to overanalyze stuff, as you know.
Oh yeah, me too. And that's, I guess it's important for us when we're talking about like things that are quick to get contentious, like religion is, and be like, well, my interpretation was this, which was different. I don't think you're wrong. It's just not how I viewed the movie.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I thought the movie was about as popcorn as you can make, while still being kind of like dark at times.
So
like this was definitely a weird one for me.
Right? Like it was. I couldn't feel like it was tough for me. Where like if you're gonna try to be like you said, kind of popcorn, more campy or cheap, then I'm on board. But they kept flip-flopping. Like I wasn't sure what they were trying to be here, like wearing two different hats. Like that, you know, I think when you and I were done watching this, I'd asked you if you thought if they did this on purpose or were they trying to be serious. And I think you had originally, your initial thought was they were trying to be serious with this, and it came off this other way. Do you still think that after, a couple days,
it's so funny the things I forget. I don't even remember us talking about it.
It was literally a couple days
but
ago.
I get weird when I always get weird after I watch a movie. I just want to like not talk to anyone about anything after I watch a movie. It's like a really big ordeal for me. That's why I always kind of like hated going to movie theaters with people. So like, hey, what'd you think? Like, I don't know. I'm still processing it. You know what I mean?
See, and I love the opposite. I love immediately talking about it. Like, Morris and I are notorious for that. Going to see a movie, and then we immediately spend the next hour or two and we dissect it. If it's a good enough movie where we can talk about it.
Yeah, I'm the total opposite. I think we saw The Departed in movie theaters, and that's definitely a movie you got to process a bit. I think I was like, I didn't want to talk to anyone for like a good 12 hours after The Departed.
I thought you and I mean, obviously this last year we haven't seen much, but I remember you and I seeing one, and then right afterwards you didn't want to talk about it at all.
It probably was a Pixar movie like Inside Out or something.
No,
because those movies too. I'm like, dude, that was a trip.
Those are always, those are for the most part really good when you're watching them, but they become better when you rewatch them, and then you kind of learn more about them because they're so in depth. It's like stuff you didn't even think of. It's like, oh wow, I don't think it was one of those. I honestly, I don't remember the last movie we would have seen in a theater.
Right. So when it comes to this movie, The Cleansing Hour, I agree with you. I think this movie was trying to be fun, but it couldn't not take itself seriously, and so it leaned really hard in the sort of horror aspects. Like, it almost feels like this comes from a place of them wanting to try to be like The Evil Dead or The Evil
Oh,
Dead 2.
well, thank you, because earlier on I was thinking this was like a really bad attempt at a Sam Raimi movie.
Because, and now I wouldn't make that comparison lately, but throughout the entire time, Lane, when she's possessed, is making all these like corny jokes,
Mm-hmm.
and none of the jokes are really landing for me. Um, they tried and it didn't work. But you know, like right from the get go, once we see Lane's possessed and the demon is trying to like prove to them, right, that she is in fact a demon. Like they go for some pretty hardcore kills. Like the tech guy gets burned alive,
Yeah,
and like
yeah.
right in front of his niece, and then the niece is like the guy like burnt alive into a crisp, and his skin's all melting, like it melts off on her leg,
Yeah.
you know? And so like this is too hardcore. It's taken itself, it's not like fun. Like it's hard to describe sort of fun because like fun can be absurd. But this was leaning into like a more serious like absurd. Like it wasn't trying to there's just a lot of this weird stuff going on in this movie when it comes to Lane cracking jokes and then these guys just being like tormented, right? Like there was torment in what's that movie that I really liked, Dead Alive.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's like a lot of that there, but it's like it's so heightened that you know it's in on the fun. This movie only felt like it was in on the fun a quarter of the time, and then when you're like in like when you're trying to like in that trying to straddle that line, but you're so far into like the serious stuff, it kind of it feels weird. It feels mushy, and it doesn't quite work because of that. I don't know if I'm explaining this well.
Yeah, no, that's kind of how I feel as well. Like,
It almost feels like season 4 of Community, where Dan Harmon wasn't part of the show anymore. And this is like fresh in my mind because I've been watching some YouTube videos just like that pop up, and this is on my mind. But like season 4 of Community had like this really bad problem where the showrunner left. Well, he was fired. And like that show was more or less the showrunner and all this talent that he cultivated for that season. And a lot of that talent then left. So he basically had 2 new showrunners that replaced Dan Harmon and then a bunch of like other directors and writers. And it just felt like an imitation of this thing. And when I watched this movie, it kind of felt like it was trying to be the best of things that these guys have watched in the past. And that's why I brought up like The Evil Dead, because that seems to be like the most direct line that it's referencing. Like just like you can just totally picture like Lane as just like a very crazy deadite. You know what I mean?
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Making all these corny jokes. She's kind of like crazy. The only thing she's not doing is really like laughing all the time. She's moving sporadically. Her whole skin and complexion changes. And then of course she makes a bunch of shit happen and torments people, right? Like it's like if this was like Evil Dead, The Cleansing Hour, like I would have totally believed it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So sort of that's kind of like the bulk of the movie for me. It doesn't quite work, but there's like a lot of cool stuff that I've sort of glossed over in like my 5 minutes of rambling that we're going to talk about in a little bit. Because I think a lot of scenes in this movie like genuinely had me like on my seat. I was like really enjoying it. But then there were times that I was just kind of like, okay, I hope the movie can just move on really fast because it really does feel like there's only like 60 minutes of movie, and this is like a 90-minute movie. And I just wanted that other 30 minutes to be like drastically cut down. And the things the things I'm talking about now, I think I mentioned to you when we were watching this movie, was like, yeah, this feels like padding. Turns out it kind of wasn't, because there was a reason for it. And that's all these sort of like vignette scenes where we get like people watching the stream.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like a lady's car broke down and her husband's kind of like fixing it, and she's on her phone watching The Cleansing Hour. You've got the president's kid. We don't know it's the president's kid yet, but he's watching The Cleansing Hour. Got 2 bar maidens essentially, you know, watching like we get all these different people, and it feels very Truman Showy. Except like Truman Show actually did it right, where it's not trying to turn these people into characters. You kind of like get who they are at a glance.
Yep.
And the Truman Show would just quickly show you who's watching, get the reaction, move out. Because for that movie, it was important to see who was watching, because we wanted to, the movie wanted to prove to you that there's like this fiction in this universe where all these people are watching this one guy. And we want to be able to, they're kind of like an audience surrogate in a way. But for this, it felt so weird, and it interrupted the flow of the film because we would spend minutes with these people.
Yeah.
And you like, why the hell are we spending this much time with these people when they're not part of the cleansing hour? They're not in the exorcism. So what did you think about those scenes?
I agreed with you when we were watching it. I think we both kind of said that, it felt like padding, it felt like they had a good solid hour of a movie, and then they kept throwing these little scenes in there, and I was kind of bored with them. And yeah, like we said, we could argue that they come into play at the end. That's fine, but just don't feel like they were necessary.
It isn't like the ending doesn't feel like it justifies like the 15 plus minutes we spent with all these random people, right?
Yeah, but it was a good analogy about the Truman Show. I mean, when you're saying it did remind me of that, just not as good. In Truman Show it worked. This just didn't work at all. Like, yeah, it was like, oh, we have a pretty good 70 minutes, but we need another 20. So let's do this, and it's just like, I don't know, man. But you explaining it was kind of how I felt. Like, it had some good elements here. Like, it wasn't, I've seen far worse films, and it had the idea itself is a really cool idea. Especially nowadays where everything is, online and streaming and YouTube and social media. And, you got these, Drew and Max, they concoct this, Max is this, he's a priest and he's going to do exorcisms. And it's so, the thing is, there's people out there that would actually believe it. You and I would look at it and go, come on, we know this isn't real. But people would go, yeah, oh my God, he's totally a real priest and these exorcisms are really happening. And it's just, and what was funny is they're selling stuff while they're doing an exorcism. Like he's doing an exorcism, a supposed exorcism, and then cuts kind of away towards the camera and starts selling stuff. It's just,
yeah, I would say that's like the one message of the film. I don't know what it is, but just the in your face corporatism that we sort of market to people, like even as individuals, like we're just constantly trying to make money.
Yeah.
And we'll do it in any way possible. For Max, that was selling essentially fake merch to
supposedly
selling it as real.
Yeah, supposedly the stuff was.
In fact, maybe not. I actually take a step back because there's a lot of grifters in, like certain religious communities, right?
Yeah.
Like, they sell you on an idea and they say, bring your tithe, give your money to me. Mm-hmm. And then they fly in private jets and they try to justify that, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I would say like maybe the movie's criticizing that, but it didn't really feel like it because we only ever see Max like sell that stuff and it's kind of like tongue in cheek and jokey. It doesn't feel like the movie's really putting seal into that point, but I won't ignore that it's not there. And I kind of forgot about that.
Yeah.
So I mean, kudos to the movie for doing trying to say something.
Yeah. If that was their intent, for sure. I mean, Max he's kind of like, man, he's mainly a douchey, right? I mean,
yeah, the movie does a good job of establishing Drew and Max and Lane for the most part. Drew is like the friend who's supporting his friend.
Yeah.
Or, Max.
Yeah. He seems to do everything, right? He I don't know what you call him, the producer. I don't know what you call him here, but he does literally everything. Max just comes in, shows up just about on time for the show. And then, he's good at that, at what he's doing. He's selling this product, which is, fake exorcisms. He's good at that. He's really good. And Drew does everything else. And Lane is his girlfriend and she's, we find out later on in the movie, because Lane and Max immediately, you could tell they don't like each other, or really Lane doesn't like him. And we find out later why that is. But, so they're all good at their jobs, and we have a couple other players. But they're not, I don't know, man. Chris looks like he's the guy that holds the mic. I don't know what you call that guy. boom operator. I don't know.
I don't
I
know.
don't know technology or all those the proper terminology for stuff like that.
Yeah, it's
I th-
he's the mic
he's
guy.
the mic guy. Tommy was the special effects guy, and then Riley, I think, is his niece, and she goes to USC and thinks she knows everything, and she's like 20, and she just seems like an asshole. But so the main players are Max, Drew, and Lane. You know, they Max wanted a guest. The guest ended up not showing up. So they're getting ready to go and film, the next episode. Lane
Yeah,
had to step in.
I'm not sure why. Oh, I guess the reason why that guess was taken off the table was just so that the demon, whatever, could use Lane's history with Max to drive a wedge between him and Drew. I think that's the
Maybe
only reason.
that could have been. That could be
But
it.
other than that, there was no reason for
No.
the other like the original guest to like be just stolen away by presumably like that demon. We don't know for sure.
Yes, I don't remember the demons. Do you remember the demon's name? I don't remember.
I thought it was Amon, but I'm not 100%.
Yeah, I don't remember. They kept going through a lot of different names. Like they had which I thought was kind of cool. It almost looked like an app where you could plug in any keywords and it would bring up a characteristic of a demon. Like this demon is so and so, and it does this, this, and I thought that was kind of cool. I mean, to the story. I don't know if they have something like that exists, but for the sake of the movie, it was kind of cool.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know, man. My issues, I think, were, like I said, cool story, some cool things going on here, but I felt like they missed an opportunity with Lane becomes the demon, and the voice is so boring. It's like you have an opportunity because we've seen so many cool movies with demons, and they have this just creepy voice. I don't know, very menacing, and this was just very plain. I was I was bored by it. I was just so bored by it. I was like, come on, man.
It was like such a non-factor for me. Like in Gunjam where they're making that sound. I was hoping like,
God, yeah.
imagine something like that. Just like something like eerie and unnatural. It doesn't sound human.
Dude, I agree
That
completely.
would have been cool.
Like in The Grudge,
Yeah.
that is so simple, but it's effective. It freaks you out, and none of that was happening here.
Right. Like when it comes to like otherworldly supernatural stuff, like the things that we find scary are things that are just kind of like a little off of being human. So like in those ghost stories, it's like, yeah, they float or they move so perfectly like in the air, like no human could ever do that. So I do wish that they didn't just like disguise her voice, like because I think like the actor who plays Lane is just like doing a voice.
Yes.
Right. I don't.
Yes.
Like in like The Exorcist, they have two people saying the same line. Right. I'm assuming one is ADR, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
But that like makes it sound very weird and strange because it's like, yeah, you hear like the demon's voice and you hear the girl's voice, and they're like that whole movie is like those two beings being in conflict and then trying to like separate that conflict with the priests. And that's like a very effective like storytelling device. So that use of that effect is really cool. But in here, it was just like, let's have her move around weird and do like a weird voice. Now, like the movements, I think they did okay. That worked for me.
Yeah.
But like the voice was, I didn't even think about the voice. And that's like a problem. You want to like be unnerved by the voice, I guess.
Right.
So
I mean,
yeah,
you're a demon. You want to be, you want this to scare you. And it just didn't, I wasn't scared by the demon. Like
it's also like we've seen, I'm sure most of our, like it's some portion of us seen like multiple Elm Street movies, and like Freddy's a scary figure in like the first movie. Yeah. And then I don't even remember the second movie, but like every subsequent film, like it's jokey.
Well, not so much two. Like when three became more. Look, I mean, 1 through 3, the makeup's phenomenal, and he's very creepy and scary. But then 3 is when they started introducing all the little one-liners and stuff, and then it got really bad in 4, and then it got horrible after that.
Well, that's my point. Is when you're trying to be funny in that way, you lose the horror. Yeah. And that's why I thought maybe this was like some sort of homage or satire, but I got like this mishmash of what the movie was trying to do, and I couldn't figure it out. So I wasn't sure if it was trying to be funny or not.
That's the problem here, right?
Right. I mean, and if I don't know what the movie's doing, then I lose confidence in the film. I don't know how to feel. And so it didn't work. So you could not do like a freaky voice and do jokes, but the jokes need to be funny. If you try to
Yeah.
do like this weird voice with the jokes, that's probably not going to work because no one's going to laugh.
Yeah.
And at that point, it would be, like, we're here to make them uncomfortable. Well, I don't feel uncomfortable because everything's so flat. So there's just a lot of things not quite working in this movie in regards to just like these little things that really, really add up. But what did work for you in this movie? What are things that stick out to you that like, oh yeah, that was cool?
Yeah, I mean, I thought you mentioned the way she was moving in the chair. I thought that was good. I thought some of the effects, the makeup were done really well. I love the idea. I'm a sucker, and I think when we were watching this, you mentioned the green room, but I'm a sucker for a movie that takes place in one area.
Like the bottle movie.
Yeah,
Like the bottle episode, but in movie
yeah,
form.
I love that. It's simple, but it works for me most of the time. And
we watched what's that movie that we did our last episode? I think the Stephen King one.
Stephen King.
Yeah. Wait, was it Stephen King?
No, I think the last one you and I did was Better Watch Out. What was prior to that? Did we do?
The Devil Blood movie or the Jesus Blood one? Demon Night?
Demon Night. Yeah, Demon Night. Yeah,
like that. That's like that same idea.
It is the same idea, and I love that. I love that. You're in an area, and this was basically one kind of larger room, which was kind of a set. Demon Night was a little bigger. It was kind of like a church / hotel thingy. I love those things. And I keep going back to, if you were being strictly campy, I'm on board. If you're being serious, I'm on board. Just find one of those and roll with it. And I just kept going back and forth. And that's why it's like, I liked it. I didn't like it. And it's tough for me, man. It's just like, it's a 5 out of 10 for me. It's just there. It's just, I don't know, man.
Yeah. For you, there's nothing that really set this movie apart.
No,
right?
It's not like and I wouldn't say like, hey, don't go watch this, because there are movies that we have seen. I would say absolutely don't go watch it. Don't waste your time. This, I would say, give it a shot, because it's not a terrible movie. It's just not a great movie. And they could have done so many better things. Just pick a lane, and I hate to say lane because I know no pun intended, but pick a lane and go with it. Stick with it. If you want to do this kind of Sam Raimi-ish type stuff, I'm on board, man. Go for it. Like, there could have been some cooler stuff with the demon and all those things. It's just they kept flip-flopping. Like, some of the religious stuff became too serious for me. The flashbacks, I understand why they did the flashbacks, but some of the flashbacks were kind of brutal. Like where, because you could tell, Max and Drew have been friends a long time, and they were in, I don't know what school that is. That like,
it's probably like a Catholic boarding school, or something
school,
like that.
And then the nun, would, I don't know. I guess I don't know if they would screw off, but the nun would punish them, and some of the punish.
Nah, dude. So like this is Max not being like a good like student of the Bible. Like, he's supposed to be able to recite passages and stuff.
So he's kind of like
for the teacher, and he can't do it. And every time like Drew is trying to help him through it, but Max is just
he just keeps screwing up, and
he can't do it right.
He kind of like takes shortcuts, right? Like, I mean,
well, to be fair, he's like a kid. Like, the movie doesn't really paint a picture of Max like being, I don't know, lazy or anything like that. He just doesn't know this stuff, like he's not picking it up as fast as his teacher wants him to. Like, the movie doesn't make any sort of argument. The only thing we get from Max is Max, like in like present Max, adult Max, is saying like, yeah, I was kind of a dumb kid. We don't really see, like, he's just not picking up the material, and then he gets punished for that. I do find these like flashbacks a little weird, and I do think this movie would be better with like just like a whole recut. You get rid of some of the flashback stuff, you get rid of some of the viewer stuff, and then you get like a 10-20 minute tighter movie.
Yeah,
I think it'd be better for it, because that way we're spending basically all of our time just with the exorcism stuff.
Why do you so this might be a dumb question. I'm asking this because and I don't know if you ever came across this when you're at film school, or studying film. Let me rephrase that.
Very different.
You studied film at Berkeley, so let me rephrase that.
I studied I studied the history of film.
History of film.
And don't ask me anything because I don't remember.
Because you don't remember.
No.
But I know most movies these days, and especially horror, you got to give 80 to 90 minutes. But what if you don't have a good 80 or 90 minutes, but you have a really good 60? Why can't you just release that? It's just because there's not enough, it's just not long enough. It's not enough filler time. I mean, I'm not
going to be able to answer this at length. I will say that I don't know at what point you have a short film and what point you have a feature length film. I think that's around like the 65 plus minute mark, or maybe the 69 plus minute mark. Cause I know most people do not want to release like a 71-minute film, right? They just don't. And I don't quite understand why that's the case. Cause if you think about it in terms of movie theaters, and you would probably have a little experience with this, you're able to show more showings of a 70-minute movie than you can a 2.5 hour minute or a 2.5 hour long movie.
Yeah.
Right. That's true. That's just how time works.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm not quite sure what the case. It might have to do with prestige. A longer movies generally
it's just like
considered like a better movie.
Yeah.
I remember like when I think it was Endgame, when Endgame was coming out, for like, man, like what's the runtime of this movie? And it was like 6 hours. As it wasn't 6, but people were like really concerned with like how long it was, and they felt the longer the movie was going to be, the better it was going to be. For like a movie like that makes sense. You've got a huge ensemble cast, a whole bunch of different storylines. And because it's Avengers Endgame, we know that there's going to be at least one or two, maybe more characters who are going to have the storylines wrapped up. And that was obviously the case. So you want to have time for all that stuff. And of course you want to be a fun movie on top of that. So, but for like a typical like horror movie like this, I don't know why they would feel like they would need to hit that 90-minute mark. Besides, they learn in like film school, or when they learn how to write a screenplay, that a typical screenplay is 120 pages, and it translates to about 90 minutes on screen.
Oh, okay.
That's not exactly the case. It could be, sometimes it's 1 minute per page, but like that, I don't know. I mean, we should look into it, because curious. It is an interesting question, because I do think that you'd have a vastly better, or at least a more fun movie if this movie was 15 minutes shorter and cut out a lot of the fat that you just don't need. Because,
I agree.
We get the flashback stuff pretty quickly. We know Max isn't, we know we got like, we just know that whole storyline within a few minutes. Like, we might not know that he's going to inadvertently stab the teacher in the eye. But I mean, that's just kind of like unfortunate accident, really. It's not even really Max's fault.
And is it really just there to kind of come back to haunt him towards the end of the movie? Like, I mean, we see her.
I'm not even sure what that adds to the movie, honestly.
It didn't add anything for me. Like nothing for me.
No, I mean, from like a storytelling perspective, like it's something that haunts him, sure, but it wasn't his fault. It was an accident.
It was an accident.
Now, if he had actually like stabbed her in the eye, then that would be, I thought that's where they were going. He was going to take the pencil and stab her in the eye, but he didn't even do that. He just pushed her.
Yeah.
Like, get off my friend. You're like seriously physically assaulting my friend.
Yeah.
Like slamming his head into the desk. That like makes sense to push her. Just, stop.
Yeah.
I would even like sort of understand, like, yeah, he stabs him with a pencil. I even kind of get that. Like Max isn't a bad guy here in like any scenario, and the movie has him push her, and like, yeah, that's shitty that the pencil went in her eye, but it's not Max's fault.
Yeah.
At all. So I'm not quite sure what was going on from a narrative point. Besides it being something that haunts him, but it was going to be something that haunts Max, then it should have actually been something sinful. And that could be like through killing this teacher to protect his friend. Because you'd be very conflicted. Yeah,
sure, yeah,
I killed a person to protect someone, but I was protecting someone. So is that okay? But we don't get that. We absolve sort of all guilt from Max. So I'm not quite sure what he's guilty about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think this was a misstep on the movie's part. So that would also need to be corrected. But okay, let me just take a little step back. Let's talk about because I asked you what you liked about the movie.
Yeah.
Because I've noticed that of the two of us, when we're doing an episode together, I'm usually the one sort of saying like what didn't work for me, what I didn't like. I'm going to reverse that. 2021.
It's 2021.
It's the year of,
it's a new year.
Yeah, year of positivity, right?
Year of positivity.
So things that I liked about this movie, when the movie was doing horror, it did it really well. I said earlier that I was on the edge of my seat at some points in the movie. The scene where the gaffer guy, the mic guy, Chris, he's seeing things that aren't real. And he essentially, in order to get these things off him, he's like cut himself with a razor blade. And I was like, oh yeah, that's cool. Obviously he's going to like slice his neck. He does. I was like, oh yeah, that's really cool.
Forgot about that scene. That was really cool.
Yeah, that's a good scene. Cause I get really squirmy about like self-harm, and that did it really well. Like, yeah, he's freaking out. He doesn't believe that these things aren't there. In his mind, they are there. And I was like, I was like freaking out by that. What else did I like? I liked like the kill with the Tommy special effects guy was cool.
Yeah.
Obviously the makeup on that was really great when it just kind of like coming off his niece's leg.
Did you think that the niece's kill was kind of lazy?
That was boring, but that's lazy. This isn't the thing we're doing in this corner.
I know, we're doing the good stuff.
Yeah, good stuff.
Let me see here. What else did I really like? I think I did like I love the colors in this, the very kind of muted, which is I said reminiscent of a demon type movie. Sometimes you can get that wrong. I kind of felt that was good. There was some humor here and there that I thought did work. Some, like we talked earlier, didn't, but
I really like the build up to Lane being actually possessed, because she gets the direction from Drew to put her head down, and then it's just down there for like minutes while Max is doing his thing. And then, like things are getting weird and stuff, and she like pops in the head, and then it's like a reveal that, oh yeah, like that was really cool. I liked all the like tricks that the demon was pulling like through Lane's body by her like spewing like this black bile vomits, putting stuff in her throat, which I think has been done before, but I liked it here too.
Yeah, it has. Yeah.
A lot of that stuff was cool. I liked how there was the Chekhov's gun with the silly like Google glass, like I forgot what they were called.
Oh, the little
with the glasses things. Yeah. I kind of like that. And I thought it was going to be a throwaway gag, but then I was like, if they use this, that'll be cool. I don't know what they could use it for, but it'd be cool. And they did use it as a way to basically just read the script to get rid of Amon or whatever the demon's name is. So I thought that was cool. That's just good writing. And I think that's the bulk of it. Yeah. And I do like I do like how the viewer stuff does lead to something, because I thought it wasn't going to, and it pleasantly surprised me when it did. But I will say, all right, Positivity Corner ended.
Okay.
I will say that the whole idea of this movie is extraordinarily silly, and it barely justifies itself with its ending. Barely. So the idea of this film is a demon possesses
Lane.
A guest on, we'll just say a guest, right? Okay. It is Lane, but a guest on the cleansing hour. I guess that has personal history with two of the main people behind the show. And this demon then wants to use the platform of the internets to make a mockery of their religious faith and priesthood in general by showing that Max and this whole production is fake. And then once like people might have like questioned their faith or whatever, they're then going to have Satan come and literally spawn in front of the camera, and then uses demon power to spread it through the internet and infect a bunch of people, either turning them into demons or just like kind of like zombie type things, right?
Yeah.
That's extraordinarily like convoluted and silly.
It is.
And this is why I was talking earlier about like this mushy, is it being serious or is it having like fun? And it's not having enough fun mixed with the serious stuff for me to think that it's tongue in cheek. I think it's taking itself seriously. I think that's so silly that it doesn't work.
Yep. I couldn't have said it better. I couldn't have said it better, man.
It's so extraordinarily like why would you write this? I was happy that they committed to just Satan popping up. I was like, okay, that's the logical like end game of all this stuff is to just have the devil himself come here. But to then like him use the internet as like a
Yeah.
means of like spreading his like evil devil powers and infecting like 17 million people, that was stupid.
It was stupid. I agree. I've seen stuff like this in previous movies. I'll be honest, man. I'm tired of seeing some sort of demon transformation or something because it never looks right. Like like a devil. Okay, demons are cool. I'm all for demons, but when you introduce, say, the devil at the very end of these movies, and I've seen it so many times, it just never works for me. Like I've never seen one really good like devil, and I don't know, man.
I do like how like in the first Saw movie, it's revealed that
yeah.
he's like in the bathroom the whole time.
That's friggin' awesome.
That's what this kind of reminded me of, where like the devil just kind of like uses the Tommy corpse and like it's like a burned charred corpse, right? It even makes that sense there. And he just, excuse me, he just like burst out of it,
Yeah.
like he walks
It
and
did
then he like goes blah, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
You
But
know,
then like the design was just not working for me.
no. And again, it's just look, don't try to tackle it because it's hard to tackle that. You're trying to convey the devil and this, evil figure, and most of the time, if not all the time, it just doesn't work.
I think every movie after Constantine has had this problem because Constantine does it really well.
You thought so?
Yeah, I think that's the best version of Satan I've ever seen on film, with maybe, and I haven't actually seen this movie all the way through, but Al Pacino in
was that Brad Pitt?
No, it's Keanu Reeves.
Keanu Reeves, the devil.
Is it The Devil's Contract or The Devil's Advocate? One of those things.
Devil's Advocate, something like that.
I haven't seen this movie.
It's not Contract. It's I think Devil's Advocate or something like that. I've never watched it.
The lawyer movie.
Yeah, I never watched it all the way through either.
Like those are maybe like the best I've seen. And for whatever reason, I've seen a lot of the Al Pacino performance there. I don't know why. I think it's because in like the mid or late 2000s, this was on the like TV a lot, but it was obviously censored. So, yeah, no, I really liked, I don't remember the actor's name, but yeah, in Constantine, really, really good. And he's only there for like 3 or 4 minutes. Perfect. I thought it was great.
I'd have to revisit Constantine. I saw it the one time. I wanted to really like it. It was just okay for me.
Yeah.
I like the idea of it, but I don't know, man. I just say stick with the demon. Don't bring the devil into it. Just stick with the demons, man, because the demons are easier to convey. You can have a lot more fun with the demons.
They also don't have like expectations that you need to live up to. The devil does. Like the devil has to be the worst of the worst. But when you have just like Amon, who's like a big wig in like the devil's army, then you can like obviously make him like really like bad shit, like wild and crazy and terrible and awful and all these things. But it doesn't have to be the worst thing ever, whereas the devil does. That's just kind of like the American mythos we have around the devil, like separate from religion, right? Like you don't even need to be a religious person. Like, oh yeah, the devil's the worst, like bad guy ever.
And it's right. It's like,
but like his whole plan is just to like infect 17 million people and have them start going on a murder spree. And
yeah,
and that's like if we're talking about like present day stuff, that's the one that feels most present day. But there's no way this movie like foresaw the coronavirus, right?
No,
because this would have been like done before that.
Oh, absolutely. It came out in 2019, probably was being filmed in 2018 or, something like that. So no,
yeah, I mean, that's kind of like feels like the most of the times to me. Cause like, yeah, a lot of really horrible people are intentionally, not intentionally, but they're choosing to make choices that can potentially infect other people, which might lead to other people dying.
Yeah.
And that's but the movie wasn't made yet, so they couldn't be making that point.
No,
you know what I mean?
Just a coincidence, I would say.
Because that's the thing that said, I was like, when was this movie made? And then it was 2019, which one was released. So I was like, okay,
so my guess,
that doesn't line up.
No, these Shudder movies usually are year and a half or two prior, and they'll be released, But I mean, like I said, man, I think what you and I, and it's rare that this happens, but you and I are, I think, right on the same page on this thing, man. You
Yeah,
know,
it was an okay movie.
it's an okay movie. Like I said, I would recommend it. I say, I would tell a person, yeah, go ahead and give it a shot. You know, and who knows?
I want there to be like a Topher Grace edit of this movie that's just like cuts out like 20 minutes, and I think you'd get like a solid 5.6 maybe to like a solid maybe like 7.5 or something, you know?
I
Like,
think so. If we took out the 20 or so minutes that you and I agree that really wasn't relevant, wasn't needed at all, I think you're looking at probably like maybe a 7, you know? I don't know. But I don't know. I would like to know that. It's got to be a money thing. You know, how you promote it. I don't know, man. I don't see why you can't. Why can't you make give me a good 60 minutes? Because if you give me a really good 60 minutes, I'm stoked, instead of a okay 80 minutes. You know, I've seen several movies that like, I mean, one that comes to mind, I've said this for a year, Casino is a great movie. But I would argue with anyone, you take out 30 minutes of it and you have a better movie. Because 30 minutes of a drug for me. And I felt like it wasn't needed. You know, now I'm sure a lot of people argue that with me. But that's a movie that comes to mind, and I've said that for years. And so just, you know, I don't know, man. You know,
it's not like the length of the movie brings it down. It's that it can't justify its length.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
I'm good. Look, I'm good with, dude, I've sat through movies. I've sat through a 3.5 hour movie, and if it's good, it just doesn't feel like that, you know? There's lots of, I mean, Tarantino does, you know, his running times are usually 2.5 to 3 hours. And for the most part, it doesn't feel like that at all. You know, there's plenty of movies that are good. I mean, The Godfather, I don't know how long that is. It doesn't feel like that, you know, because it's just so good, you know. You don't need 90 minutes here. 70 minutes would have been just fine, you know. But I don't know, man. Was there any other stuff that like we liked or didn't like that maybe we just forgot about? I'm glad you brought up the whole the scene with Chris. I actually liked that. I thought that was pretty clever.
If we're asking that question, I think we're like good. You know what I mean?
I'll tell you this, yeah, and I think we are too. I think for the most part, the listeners are going to get the gist of what what this movie is about. And again, I want to ask you what you thought about this, because at the beginning of the movie, you know, Max, the priest, the supposed priest, he's all about viewers, and I remember him. There was a line where he said, "I would give anything to have, I don't know, 4 million viewers."
Oh, and then like someone's like, "Be careful what you wish for."
Yeah. And then at the very end, after all this shit he went through, you know, he got his fingers bitten off. He was all these things, you know, he came out and said he's a fraud and all these things. And then all of a sudden, you know, the dust kind of settles, and he goes to his phone and he's got like 4 million new viewers or something like that.
Well, and he's verified on Twitter too.
Oh, geez, that was it too. Yeah, he was verified. And it was that evil smirk that he had, like, oh, this was worth it. Did you catch that?
I mean, I thought that was the only happy ending for Max, because he gets out alive. His friend is okay. And, you know, the only thing besides that Max cares about was that. So I didn't think it was evil. I thought that, if anything, this was the happiest ending for Max, and also extraordinarily sad, because the only thing that makes him happy is sort of the validation that you get from trying to, sort of the narcissistic validation you get from just having a bunch of people follow you and maybe like you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I actually kind of thought it was kind of a bummer when I saw that, and I felt really bad for Max.
Like he'd never be.
But I didn't think it was evil and that he wished all this had happened.
I don't know if he'd wished it. We know he had mentioned it earlier in the film, but I think now that he has it, you know, I don't know, man. Maybe an evil smile was maybe, I don't know.
No,
you felt bad for him though, huh? Like
I felt bad.
Like this is like
this is all Max has, man. He just
because he has nothing else,
and
you know,
he's verified on Twitter. He has a bunch of followers. People kind of know what's out there, but I just don't,
because he's never going to be able to.
I didn't think about this because again, the movie doesn't try to like argue the case here, but the character development's kind of, I guess it's like technically there, because all these characters kind of like go through, revealing stuff. And you think that because they reveal that stuff, that they then can change from it. I don't think the movie makes the argument that they've actually changed from it. And I don't see evidence of that. So when we see Max at the very end, even though he's gone through all this stuff and his world has certainly changed, I don't see that he's still not this narcissistic, egomaniacal dude who just wants followers and money to support his, like high octane lifestyle where he just wants to get drunk every night, have sex with strange women and then do it again the next day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just realized I say that a lot. So that's why I say it's kind of a bummer ending. And if they were to make a sequel to this, it'd be very interesting because there'd be 17 million people going around and Max could be like a figurehead to like try to stop all this stuff. So it would just feed into him more.
Yeah.
But the movie doesn't, the movie just ends on this weird note where like, obviously the world is ending like all around everybody, but like for like the paramedics and everyone else, it's just like business as usual. You know what I mean? Like Lane and Drew are just going back to their apartment or whatever. Like it's just all very weird. But like the world is literally ending. The president was just assassinated, and by his son, no less. And then there's 17 million people crazy, like running around killing people.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I kind of lost myself there.
Nah. Yeah, but I guess I could see that. I mean, it's kind of a bummer. I mean, it's a bummer ending period, but it's kind of a bummer for Max, huh? Like this is it. This is it for him. Like he wanted this. He gets all these new people to follow him, but what does he have to offer them? Because that's what just transpired is never, like we can argue that's not going to happen again.
And this is where like a sequel would be really interesting because Max did beat the demon, like actual priest or no, he did, along with his buddy Drew and Lane. Like they won. And
did they win though? I mean, because 17 million people were infected.
They beat the demon. They lost to the devil, sure. But they did ostensibly win. So, when you see George Washington win a bunch of battles, suddenly George Washington is the figurehead for your whole resistance, right? Mm. You see Max winning here. You see him gain a bunch of followers and literally defeat evil. And so who would be the natural person to sort of be the symbol of this resistance versus the devil? And that would be Max. That's why I find the idea of a sequel interesting. But I don't think the movie makes that case. It's just something that my brain does when I think about this stuff.
You do this a lot.
Yeah, well, I do this on the podcast a lot. I don't actually think about this stuff on my free time.
That's true. I guess
this is only stuff that comes up after I think about it. Yeah, because I'm like forced to think. Like I always thought about like the Truman Show stuff and all this stuff when I was like taking a shower or whatever, or just going about my day. But when I like think about like sequel ideas or whatever, like just like the natural extension of the story, that only happens in here, dude. For the most part, I think I did one time when I was driving or whatever.
Yeah.
Most of that happens right now. But the movie doesn't make that case. So if the movie doesn't make that case and it's non-canon, then it's just ramblings from just a guy who watched a movie. So that's why I don't think it's like an evil smirk. And that's also why I feel bad for Max, because even if we did have like, say the camera ran for like another 20 minutes, just like it did on like Better Watch Out, where like, we can like imagine where that sequel goes. Like I only feel sorry for Max because now he's going to be like a figurehead for a resistance that might just inevitably fail. And does his character change if he's going through like this feedback loop of where he did gain all these followers and it just goes to his head, so he can then act more like an asshole, and then just it keeps going and going and going and going.
Yeah.
Like that's fine, but that's why I'm saying like the character development in this movie is just kind of like, like, I don't know. I guess stuff happens, but it doesn't feel like anyone's really changed.
No, not really at all. I mean, I don't feel that way,
Yeah. But anyway, hit me up for Cleansing Hour 2. the cleansing
Max. So Cleansing Hour 2, Max versus the Evil Dead.
There you go.
I don't know.
The Evil Dead, the Cleansing Year, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, they have to. If that's the case, they got to go more on the campy.
Because like, I mean, dude, these are literally the way they were killing people too is just so like wild. Like
It was
like
it was.
the bar maidens. I don't know why I'm calling them bar maidens.
I don't know why you're calling bar. Yeah,
I'm thinking of like D&D stuff, and I just such a D&D thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So like these two women at the bar, like they like kill a guy by stepping on a empty beer bottle like in his mouth.
Yeah,
you know
and then
what
I
mean?
think there was the restaurant. Like the cooks in the restaurant were like
One guy was like steaming a guy's head on the grill.
his grill, and the other one was taking a meat cleaver or something. So yeah,
Then
there's
you
some,
had like the tire kill, right?
yeah.
Remember, like I think our very first episode was, I don't remember what the movie was called, but it had like a tire death.
Oh, happy birthday to me.
Yeah, happy birthday.
Yeah,
to me.
with the motorcycle, the dirt bike.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that reminded me of that.
Yeah, which is funny because that was about a year ago. Our first episode was happy birthday to me. Can you believe it's been a year?
Yes,
pretty crazy.
It's been the longest year ever.
Longest year.
Well,
not for podcast wise. It's because of, well, we all know 2020 was kind of
right.
You know, hopefully 2021 will be better.
So yeah, that's the cleansing hour.
That's the cleansing hour.
It's an okay movie.
Yeah, it's an okay movie. Don't expect The Exorcist here.
If you're in an okay mood.
Yeah, if you're in okay mood.
And you just want to watch something okay and feel better that you've never made anything yourself, this is the movie to watch.
This is the one.
What's funny though is that obviously so much work went into this, so I'm never going to like just purely bash. I don't think I was bashing this movie. I feel like we're just kind of pointing things out that didn't work for us, but obviously I do respect all the work that goes into this.
Oh, absolutely, man.
And there was like minutes of the like dozens of minutes of this movie where like I was genuinely having a good time.
No, absolutely, man. Yeah,
it's just this isn't like the best horror movie you could be spending your 90 minutes on.
Yes, there's plenty of other ones that are, you know, out there that are better. But yeah, you know, if you've seen all of them and want to check out this one, check it out. You know.
Yeah.
So all right, man. I think that's it for us. Cool. Well, thanks for listening, and everyone. Hopefully, 2021 is starting out better than 2020. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe the sun's a little brighter. The birds are chirping louder.
No, it's just as bad so far. It's maybe even worse.
Don't say that. Don't say that. Let's knock on wood here.
Knock on wood. Salt over the shoulder. I hope everyone stays safe and finds enjoyment where they can. Watch movies, read comics, read books, watch TV shows. Spend time safely in your home with your loved ones, with your immediate family. Be safe when you go outside, all that jazz.
Yep, I agree. All right, man. That'll do it for us. Everyone stay safe. Thanks again for listening. Make sure you tell everyone about our Ear for Fear podcast. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Ear for Fear. You can also check out our website, earforfear.com. There you can keep up to date on news, events, and episodes. You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts. We hope you come back and get an earful.